any of the books that publishers put out there, every book is designed. It is designed. In terms of selection of typography, typeface, in terms of layout, in terms of formatting, in terms of visuals which need to blend with the text if you happen to have visuals, and the cover, of course. But it's a paradox because the books market in India is dominated by textbook publishing. This must be kept in mind both for the school market as well as the college market, and for all of us, and I assume everyone here has gone through their spell of schooling and college, in spite of the fact that Samar, I'm sorry you never did get around to doing that MFA. We know that many of the textbooks were poorly designed because there is one thing that is overall present in a book that to some extent militates against design. And I'm trying to provoke everyone here, and that is content. So basically a book promoted or it content which is the overall writing element, and for so many years publishers thought that they should just get content, out there, and the rest will take care of itself. But something's happened which actually changed, and we have had the direct introduction of design into books. And for me, a much vexed term which poor Badri used, and it has been hotly debated since, for me, the two words that are operative in this context are the two C's. One is that it became a consumer product. And suddenly, you had to engage with the reader. That reader is a slightly unknown species, very fickle kind of a creature, who sometimes has to be persuaded, cajoled, and even seduced to buy. And the second C, just a major development, was competition. Publishers increasingly found that if their books were to make a mark in an increasingly competitive market, well, there had to be a certain amount of design element, because you get the content out there, you make them readable, but why not have a well-designed product as well? It only added. So therefore, a product or an entity which was actually designed by the production department in most publishers, and further a design element added to by the typesetter, or if the printer had some inputs, he would provide that, suddenly began to be designed in-house with the introduction of professional designers. And so publishers began to tap into the resources of graphic designers, including some graduates of the National Institute of Design. But the one thing that I need to try and say is, you wanted to address this, is that designers, graphic designers suddenly found that there is no money in all designing books. And I was at the India Design Expo or whatever, this fortnight ago, and I happened to bump into two designers. Oh, they said, we are graphic designers, we design books. I'm sorry, Mr. Bal, there's no money in it. So, why do then we still have graphic design books? I personally believe that graphic designers design books not because of the money, but this is a small thing which comforts me at night at times, because I think that they do it because they love books and they love reading. You see, the reason why I am saying this is that when you design, and all of you in this room know this aspect of design much better than I do, that when you design a product or you design a building, it's out there, it's utilitarian or its design and aesthetic aspect of it is manifest. It is overt. Once you have designed, an architect designs a house or a designer designs a product, you can't suddenly say I disown it. I can't. It's out there, right? And its values are in a way overt. That's why we write so much about the design aspects. But when you actually design a book, the values inherent is that in that is not so much, it's not out there in that glaring way. You have to cultivate, and for every book, while all books are published for a readership, we have to cultivate the reader. The reader is simply not there. Then we would be publishing bestsellers all the time, and it doesn't happen. So what is it that need to do? What happened was, with the competitive scenario, and at the time when retail visibility was important, and today of course, as you know, the brick and mortar stores are getting phased out one by one. The competition among particularly those who we call the trade publishers, for people who would like all of you to read their books, you try to actually compete for better visibility in the retail space. So the bookshop, you have to persuade the bookshop guy to display your book in the shop window. And the only way that that particular book would attract attention is if it was visually elegant and so on. And that, I think, is very, very important. Now, I may be in a way preaching to the converted, as far as, and I am assuming that many of you are readers. Mr. Romola told me that his wife is an avid reader and will be joining us in this afternoon, and I am awaiting her arrival because she is a potential customer for me. And sometimes it is given to a publisher to be able to design not exactly coffee table books, but architecture books and books on art and so on, where you can really play around with design in a big way and do it. So when we published the book, for example, called Building in the Garden, which was the architecture of Joseph Allen Stein by Stephen White, we formatted landscape and we put in art paper and we put in all of Stein's sketches. But what did we do with that? And I should have brought my copy. We interspersed green pages, totally done in solid green. And one of the things that one of the reviewers pointed out was that the green pages were very refreshing to the eye. Of course, we got a professional designer to design that book, but one thing that must be kept in mind is that if you engage the services, then they all add to the overall cost. And whatever are the production inputs that goes into the making of the book has to be recovered from the sale of that book. So you got other constraints of pricing and so on. In the case of Stein, the hardback, which was during lunch people were speaking of GSM and so on, which is the average thickness of the paper. I won't go into the technical term, but let's say you use imported art paper, 130 GSM and so on. It adds to the overall bulk. Gives you very elegance, but it adds, and it's a very heavy book at the end. That absorbed the bulk of the cost, and the only reason we could engage a professional designer, and that was because we got a subsidy from the Ford Foundation. And as a result of that absorbing the cost, the paperback, and Badri might remember this, and I had students from SPA queuing up at the office, we were able to price the paperback at 250 rupees. The same content, except the paper changed and the binding changed. I used also. Quickly, who am I? I am what you would call a lapsed academic, not a lapsed priest, because all the problems with priesthood are being manifest in the papers. You hear some problems or the other. I taught at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, and I taught at the Northeastern Hindu University in Shillong. As they say, those who can do and those who can't teach. But suddenly I got found out and I decided to shift into publishing. And publishing is a strange kind of a shot of adrenaline to the veins, because you get into publishing without actually knowing what you're getting into, and before you realize 20, 25 years, 30 years of your life are over. And I worked with Oxford University Press for 18 years, and I was the director. In India, it is amazing. And then I joined Ratna Sagar, which is more into the school space, and most recently we have established this Ratna Books, which is what you see on the screen behind you, and which is solely into, this imprint is only for translations from Indian languages, either short stories or full-length works. But this is a crowded space. You've got to try and make a presence in the market through your books in terms of content, but you also need to do it in terms of design. So these are some of the books that we have designed. These are 2 translations from Tamil that you can actually have a look at, and the catalog that we have done a digital print. And so we want to try and make a design intervention in terms of, a better design for the book. And now, of course, design element has come into textbooks as well, particularly in school publishing, which is the largest chunk of market. You will be surprised at the number of new players that come out every year to get into books which can be prescribed for the CBSE schools, for the ICSE schools, and for the state board schools. And so I have kept couple of educational books as well. Now, one small element which of course was not designed, but this person is somebody that Roger may know, and this is a person who's a Canadian citizen, Argentinian by birth and domiciled in France. His name is Alberto Manguel, and he is possibly one of the most seminal influences in books and reading, partly I would say a mentor. Roger spoke about a 14th century townhouse converted in Wales. Manguel lives in a 17th century chateau converted into a residence which also had a barn where you could stable horses. And he has a modest collection of 30,000 books in his home. Alberto Manguel wrote this wonderful book called The History of Reading. There is one visual that I would like to show you from that, and that is that the context in which we do reading, we try and be as comfortable as possible. But for all of us, we have our own favorite places in which to indulge in reading. And one of those that he shows here, which I have which is flagged here, and Alberto Manguel is important for me because I am sorry to inform you that I am going to imprint my own book on a very unwary and unsuspecting public by the end of this year. So please, as soon as you hear of it, make sure you steer clear. Because of all the things the author Anthony Trollope said about books, and all the features that a book has, its chief merit be that it should be readable. And you'll be surprised at the large number of books out there that are simply not. I hope my book will pass that test, and I'm putting this visual. But this is a picture of a reading chair in 17th century England. It's a comfortable chair as far as chairs go, nice cushion at the back, got lovely armrests, and lo and behold, it has a rest for a book. Wow, heavy books. If you have to read the 800 kg Bhagavad Gita, you will need a rest, even if they allow you to take it out of this temple. But the most signal aspect of this particular book, of this chair is, and the way it's been designed, is the way you sit. You do not sit facing the audience. You sit with your back to the audience. That's how you sit in this chair when you rest your book. That for me is symbolic, because the act of turning your back means that I have withdrawn into my private world of reading. Please do not disturb me and allow me to indulge in my madness. Thank you very much.